We're now streaming. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Municipality of Brockton electronic meeting for Tuesday, November 9th. We'll begin the meeting with an acceptance of the council agenda, moved by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Lifeso, that Municipality of Brockton accept the agenda for the regular council meeting on November 9th as presented. All those in favor? Okay, carried.
Yes.
Okay. And we'll go to the declaration of pecuniary interest. Anybody declaring tonight on a few items?
I have
Mayor
two
Pete.
items here,
Yes.
Sorry.
7.1 and 7.15.
Okay. And Councillor Lang.
7.1.
All right, thank you. Okay, so now we'll move into our public meeting on a zoning bylaw amendment moved by Deputy Mayor Gierzak, seconded by Councillor Hutchin. Well, I'll just move into the meeting first. I usually don't read those motions. I'm sorry.
Sorry, Mayor Peabody, just for the sake of the minutes, I did get Councillor Lifeso's declarations, and then did you say there was one from Councillor Lang as well?
Lang's declaring on
7.1?
7.1 on the.
I just missed the general nature of the conflict.
Well, he's on the board of Saugeen
Okay,
Hospice.
perfect. That's all. Thank you.
To declare. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Alphick.
Sitting order.
Yeah, I'm also declaring on items number 7.3 and 12.2, and I have filed that with the clerk's office.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. So moving to the public meeting for the zoning then, we'll welcome Ms. Steeper to present her report on bylaw amendment 30.
Thank you, Mayor Peabody. If anyone is interested in receiving notice on this application, please contact the clerk or email the Bruce County Planning Department at bcplwa@brucecounty.on.ca. The purpose of this application is to facilitate a surplus farm dwelling severance at 364 Concession 14 East in the municipality of Brockton. An amendment to the zoning bylaw is required to rezone
Oh, Ms. Steeper's internet went out. Just wait a little bit for it to come back on. Can you hear me, Ms. Steeper?
Mayor Peabody, one suggestion may be, although I know it's while we're waiting maybe for Ms. Steeper to fix any internet problems, is we could always ask if there was anyone on behalf of the applicant who wanted to speak now, even though I know that's a little bit unusual. Usually you like to hear the planner's report first, but just to make best use of our time together, maybe we could do that. Thank you.
Okay, there's Mr. Davidson.
Good evening, folks.
Yeah, good evening.
Yeah, so sure. And I don't want to steal Julie's thunder, but I will enlighten everybody as to what the purpose of the zoning bylaw is. I will be brief. So the purpose is to facilitate a severance of what we call a bona fide farmer surplus farmhouse. The severed parcel conforms to the zoning bylaw, but the retained parcel is deficient in size. The A1 zone in the municipality zoning bylaw requires a lot area of 39 hectares, whereas the subject property after the severance will only have 31.54 hectares. And that's because some land has already been removed from this holding. So the new site-specific zoning will reduce the lot area requirement. And also on the retained parcel, it's standard practice in Bruce County to put a no house clause, if you will, on the farmlands. So that means once this house is severed off, the owners can't come back and build another house because it sort of seems like you're playing games. So that's the intent of the zoning bylaw amendments. This application required an official plan amendment because it was a lot had already been severed off. In fact, 2 lots had been severed off years and years ago. And that official plan amendment was considered by county council recently at a public meeting. So this is step number 2 to deal with the zoning bylaw amendment. I should add that county council, there were no concerns raised at that meeting. And then once council is done with this zoning bylaw amendment, then the county will hopefully approve the severance application. There were no concerns raised from any of the agencies, and the general public didn't ask any questions or raise any concerns as well. I know I probably didn't do as good a job as Julia would have done, but Mr. Mayor, members of council, that's what the proposed amendment is all about. Thank you.
Okay, so as you've heard, county council's heard the OP amendment. There were no concerns then, and passed very quickly. I see Ms. Steeper coming back on, reconnecting, and hi.
Hi there, I lost connection.
Oh,
Can
that's
everybody hear me okay?
Yeah, we're good. So Mr. Davidson spoke on behalf of the proponent and outlined the work that he had done for the board camps. So
Should I continue?
Yeah, go ahead, continue.
I'm not sure where I left off there, but this is for a surplus farm dwelling severance. The existing single detached dwelling, sheds, and barn will remain on the severed parcel. In terms of the planning analysis, it focuses around the agricultural severance policies in both the county and official plan and the provincial policy statement. They established the criteria for lot creation. The proposal meets all the criteria established in both those policies, except for the minimum lot area. And the number of parcels from an original crown lot. It's the opinion of staff that this proposal maintains the overall intent of the agricultural policies. The lot is already smaller than the minimum size. The farmable area will continue to be farmed in the same manner. The amendment will allow the applicants to sever a house that is surplus to their needs while contributing to the ongoing viability of their farming operations. The barn is to remain on the severed lands as an accessory structure for storage purposes only, which will be addressed as a condition on the associated consent application. A holding provision requiring an archaeological assessment for the lands containing high archaeological potential is proposed, as is normally done with this type of application. No concerns were raised from agencies, no public comments were received on this application, and this concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Steeper. Okay, are there any questions from council? Either Mr. Davidson or Ms. Steeper. Councillor Adams.
Yeah, I support the application, but I do have a question for Julie. I know many of the zoning applications have a holding condition for the archaeological assessment. And I probably should have asked this a couple of years ago, but I'm going to ask it tonight. What's involved for the proponent to get the archaeological assessment done, Julie? Do you know? What's the process? How long does it take? How much does it cost? It may be specific to the property, and I know the archaeological assessments tend to happen when there's a water stream around it. But just for maybe my benefit, council's benefit, what does it cost the applicant, and how much time does it normally take to get that done?
So in this case, it's just a holding that's being proposed. So nothing actually needs to be done by the applicant at this point. If, for example, they were to want to build a farm building on the farmlands and it was in the area of archaeological potential, they would have to do an assessment in that regard, but it can remain, they don't have to do it right off the bat. That is something that only if construction of proposing a new building happens. So that sort of thing would have to be done by a professional archaeologist, and it usually starts as stage one. They facilitate that if needed.
And is that an expensive process, Julie, or does it depend on the property and the situation?
I am not sure about the service in regards to the expense, but in this case, it's only needed if further development requires it. In some cases, a professional can deem that it's not required. In that case, I would refer to the professional.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, any further questions from council? Hearing none. See, Mrs. Borkamp is there. Would you like to speak to the application, Mrs. Borkamp, or has Mr. Davidson covered the details?
I think Mr. Davidson has covered everything that I would have said.
Okay, thank you. And are there any members of the public online who would like to speak to the application?
Yes, Mayor Peabody, I'm quite happy to canvass with members of the public, and I'd encourage anyone who would like to participate to use the raise hand function, the chat function, or to otherwise signal their intention. So I'm just canvassing all those in attendance now. Okay, I can confirm that there are no members of the public in attendance who are indicating that they'd like to participate at this time. Thank you, Mayor Peabody.
Very good. Hearing none, I'll read the motion in support of the application moved by Deputy Mayor Gierzak, second by Councillor Hutchin, that the Council of the Corporation Municipality of Brockton has considered and hereby accepts the planning report prepared by Julie Steeper, Bruce County Planner, dated November 9th, and entitled Municipality of Brockton Planning Report, and further that Council approves proposed zoning bylaw amendment submitted by Wilfred and Nancy Borkamp, file 2021-30, and authorizes a site-specific bylaw coming forward. All those in favor? Okay, motion is carried. All right, thank you very much, Ms. Steeper. Thank you, Mr. Davidson, and thank you, Mrs. Borkamp.
Thank you.
Okay. Now move along to delegations. So our first delegation is from the Saugeen Hospice. So we'll welcome Mr. Kunke to present.
Thank you, Mayor and councillors and any members of the public. I thought Ken Brown was going to be on this, but I don't see him. So I'll just have to continue without him. And I don't think Councillor Lang will have to recuse himself because this is just an information session. But of course, he does represent one of our 12 board members. Hi, James.
How you doing, Carl?
I'm good. We wanted to bring you all up to date. I know you're all fairly familiar on a weekly basis with how we're moving forward, but it's important for us to update all of the municipalities and the counties. In fact, we did Bruce County last week, Hanover week before that. We also did South Bruce last week. We're also looking at West Grey and going from there. And it's important for us to bring Brockton up to date on what we're doing. So I think Fiona or possibly Sarah, you're probably managing the screen at your end. Is everyone currently looking at the? Yes, you are. Okay, it's up now. Great. So we were incorporated. You can go to the next one if you want, please. We were incorporated on June 4th of this year, as you all know. And thank you, Dean, for helping us. We greatly appreciate that. There are, as you know, 4 types of palliative care in Ontario. Hospital, acute care, South Bruce Grey Health Centre, of course, and its 4 facilities in Bruce, here in South Bruce. Long-term care, Bruce Lee Haven, of course, home care, which a lot of us don't know that much about because it's done quietly in homes, directly with the Ministry of Health, and then residential hospice. Acute care and long-term care are really expensive. We all know that. That slide says 3 to 5 times. They're probably currently more like 4 to 6 times the cost of a hospice in the COVID setting. But the advantage that they have, and the advantage or disadvantage for us as taxpayers, is that they're 100% funded as part of the healthcare system in the province of Ontario and every other province and territory in Canada. The hospice concept, however, is really heavily dependent on us, on the community. And we have amazing people here in South Bruce Grey, and I'll get to that. Financially, the government will fund $200,000 per bed for capital costs for building a hospice, but the cost is now $1 million, give or take. Looking at a 6-bed hospice, which is what we're looking at, with the new requirements for hospice building by the Ministry of Health, which include negative pressure rooms for each single room in a hospice, the cost is going to be in the neighborhood of $5 million. For operating costs, the government also funds $105,000 per bed per year, but the cost of that is substantially more once you build a building and can be upwards of $150,000 to $175,000 a bed. Next one, please. So who are we? Incorporating June, as I said, following a decision by the Residential Hospice of Grey Bruce, which we all affectionately call Chapman House, but officially it's RHGB. They decide to stop accepting donations for any hospice being built down here. And they decide to do that in March. And the other board member of Saugeen Hospice and I, Kelly Fotheringham, I'm glad his name's Kelly because his real name is Carl. So the fact that he's Kelly and not Carl and I'm Carl and not Brent makes it easier for all of us. Anyways, we were on the Chapman House board and we left at the end of March when they made the decision at the March 29th board meeting that as of June 30th, they wouldn't accept money anymore. So we've got 12 really experienced and good board members. Many of them, almost all of them, were on the previously known as the South Build Committee of Residential Hospice of Grey Bruce. And it's what we've got with that list, I don't have to go through. We have really good people, and you all know who they are. We have actually probably over 450 supporters now, and our Facebook page is up and running, and we have over 400 people following us, and we are posting to Facebook every day. And I'll give you that link at the end of this presentation. So why? And why now? We all know it's an established fact for years that there is a really heavy need for something in South Grey Bruce. Owen Sound's an hour away. Everyone's getting older, including me. I thought I was invincible, but it didn't work. And this has been on the books for 5 years. But of the $180,000 that the Ministry of Health funded Residential Hospice of Grey Bruce to get this going, they've spent a grand total of $37,000. They've now focused their operations entirely on Chapman House. They've publicly announced that they have no interest at this time in building a hospice down here. And on June 30th, they stopped accepting any donations at all for South Bruce. Next one, please. So we need to raise about $1 million to be authorized by the Ministry of Health to do something down here. And we are in discussions with them, and I'll chat about that on the next slide. But we also need a minimum of $400,000 annually to operate. So fundraising and donor relations are critical. We have a number of operations completed or underway. Many of you participated in Gulf for Hospice. It raised close to $150,000 a few months ago. That was the last money that was quite literally driven by Nancy Bailey in her car to Owen Sound on the 29th of June, one day before they cut off accepting donations. So that money is now in their segregated account, and I will touch on that also. Our hike for hospice, which is, of course, didn't take place last year due to COVID, has taken in well over 100,000 annually down here, let alone what it raises up there. And we're planning all kinds of things like galas, a harvest for hospice with the agricultural community, rally for hospice in the spring of next year, and also a major donor campaign. Our service clubs are invaluable. I just, on Friday, received the check for $2,500 from the Mild May Rotary Club. They did a 50-50 draw, and the winner was, I believe it's Jane, it may be Helen, I'm trying to remember. The winner of the 50-50 draw was Helen or Jane Grube, who lives right around here. So we received our check for $2,500. The Walkerton Hospital Foundation received another check for $2,500, and Ms. Grube won $5,800. She immediately announced that she is giving $2,500 of her money to the Walkerton District Hospital Foundation, and the other $2,500 to us just as soon as we get our charitable tax status, which we expect shortly. So Chapman House has over $700,000 in a South Build account that we, Saugeen Hospice, are not concerned about being used otherwise, because it can't be used otherwise. It's in a segregated bank account confirmed by their lawyers. But they have charitable tax status. We're looking at January for our tax status, possibly February, but in the meantime, there's absolutely nowhere for anyone to donate money if they want a tax receipt. Our local MPP, Lisa Thompson, has been working on this. We've been in touch with the Minister of Health, Christine Elliott, And we actually received great support already from both of our MPs locally, Grey Bruce, and those are, of course, Ben Loeb and Alex Ruff, both of whom intervened with the Canada Revenue Agency for us 2 months ago to speed up the application for our taxable status. Otherwise, we were looking at May or June of next year. We know we're going to be successful. We know we've got a hardworking crew and literally hundreds of people here that are donating. They continue to flow. Our main source of donations right now, frankly, are Mighton, Chapman, and the other funeral homes in the area. And James will know this well. People here are amazingly generous. We've been receiving checks from all of these organizations through Chapman's and Mighton's, and they come in piles 3 to 4 inches thick. And we are phoning every one of them to ensure that they do not require a tax receipt. And some of these donations are upwards of $250. Every single individual that we call with our volunteers, because we don't have staff, out of about 170 checks we have received so far, we have had 2 individuals who've said, please send me the check back. I'll rewrite it in January because I do want a tax receipt. The other 168 of those 170 have all said, keep the money. We want this hospice to be built. So when we get our tax status, we're going to see a marked boost in donations. We do have, and obviously I can't mention who or what, but in estates right now, we currently have close to $500,000 in escrow, waiting on our tax status to be achieved, because the lawyers and the accountants that are involved clearly want to take advantage of that. So it is close to 500,000. Next one, please. Close to the last slide. So what do we need? We already have your moral and wonderful in-kind support already. The land that's sitting here in East Ridge for us, we hope to make use of very soon. In the meantime, we do have a bank account. We're with Meridian here. We're a not-for-profit corporation. I just checked the account yesterday with all of our funeral donations. We are just over $10,000 in our bank account now, but it does cost money. Our Facebook, our website, our bank, the thank you cards, it all costs money, and we're all volunteers, and we don't have a problem with this. We're invested in this. We've all paid personally to date, and we don't care. So in your fiscal year 22 budget planning, which I know is ongoing right now, we would like to request a grant of $10,000. We are a not-for-profit corporation. Our treasurer is Elaine Burrow in Hanover, who is a well-known CPA in Hanover. And I'm not asking for you to make a decision now. And I see Trish already has it on the agenda later as a document for Brockton Council to consider as you go through your budget. Last slide, please. I think, yes, me and us. Emails, ask us at saugeenhospice.ca. Facebook is live and active and being populated every day by one of our very dedicated board members, Shannon Wood, as you all know, in Mildmay, who used to be with Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority. She is a social media wizard and also a fundraising expert. And we're also looking at other areas to look for grants right now. That's all I have. But if you have any questions, absolutely happy to answer them. And other than that, I'll let you get on with the council meeting because I know you have a busy agenda. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, Carl. Questions from council? Councillor Hutchin.
Thanks, Carl. I really appreciate all the work that you're doing for the Saugeen Hospice, as is the entire board. My question is, once the hospice is built, will you only allow hospice patients from the immediate area?
No. Normally, that's the way it works out under the Ministry of Health guidelines. But hospice concept is such that if there were vacancies in any given hospice, the Ministry of Health usually works with the not-for-profit corporation to accommodate anyone that needs hospice. So from that standpoint, if we take the other scenario that we're full and we have a waiting list, then local residents within what we call our catchment area would always be first on the list. And then from there, you always have to talk with the Ministry of Health to actually have them placed. We don't just grab them once a building is built and say, oh, phone the hospice, you need hospice, phone us. It all has to be done through the Ministry of Health. So.
Thank you.
Councillor Elphick, and then Councillor Adams.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor, to Carl and to all the volunteers as part of the board, I thank you. It's commendable work that you're undertaking to make this vision happen and become a reality, and it's very much appreciated. I also worry about the ongoing funding commitments by the province. It's certainly, I think, understood that those who are able to have end-of-life care in hospice is far much more dignified. And I think that there's also some work that this council should undertake in encouraging the province to increase that ongoing funding commitment to make it easier and more sustainable for these hospices once established to support their operations. And I know recently there has been some funding announcements by the provincial government for hospice care. And I certainly would be a strong advocate, not only for increase in funding for capital, but also for the ongoing operations to support initiatives like this in our community. And I believe, Carl, you said it's a 6-bed facility that we're looking at doing. I certainly hope that there's some modest room for expansion, because I certainly believe hospice has a vital role to play in our community. So thank you very much.
I couldn't agree with you more. And just if I can touch on that, the government, as we all know, provincially is heading into an election in June. There has been talk of the provincial government increasing the allotments for both capital and operating. We're members of the Hospice and Palliative Care Association of Ontario, HPCO, and they are advocating very strongly. But to your point, Tim, it certainly would not hurt if any municipality, and in this case Brockton, and we would also encourage Hanover, South Bruce, and others, to make that point to the provincial government that community members are very generous in this province everywhere, not just here, but that, you know, back to my first slide, but good Lord, hospital and home care and palliative care are 100% covered. Why is hospice, with its huge advantages, at such a disadvantage when it comes to provincial funding? So I would encourage, if council had time, and I know you do this quite regularly, to do your own advocacy with the province in general for all hospices in this province, and specifically for the hospice here in South Bruce Grey, South Bruce specifically, but to serve South Bruce Grey, because that would make a huge difference in how soon we can actually put construction boots in the ground here in East Ridge Business Park.
Councillor Adams.
Carl, thanks for your presentation. When council voted for donating the land back a couple of years ago, there was full support, full enthusiasm, and I know that remains. One project that sometimes when you field comments from residents, there's mixed review. With hospice, there wasn't. Everyone was supportive in the community, and everyone backed council's donation of the land. So it certainly has, we all know it has massive support in the community, and the sooner we get going, the better. The question I had, Carl, was twofold. In the report, it says there's $707,000 in a deferred revenue account, and I'm assuming that's available to the Hospice Committee, South Bruce, when they need it. That's kind of a question. But the other one is, a lot of times when people pass away, they direct donations to hospice. Is there a move afoot that, and some may want to give to the Owen Sound Hospice if they had a family member there, but is there an opportunity where they can direct those to the South Bruce Hospice instead of Chapman House?
Yeah.
So two questions.
I can answer both of those, and I have to be very clear that we are not the Residential Hospice of Grey Bruce. They are a not-for-profit corporation. We have, frankly spoken, attempted to collaborate them since before we were incorporated. They have absolutely no interest in talking to us, and the mayor can probably fill you in on that. They really believe that it's their football, and I have to be very careful here, and they will pick up the football and run to the goal line when they feel like it. And it hasn't been for the last 3 years because they've delayed it, and it won't be for their foreseeable future because they're delaying it. So to the 707,000, it is their money, not our money per se, because we were incorporated in June, but we are working directly with the Ministry of Health to establish collaborative rules and or a redirection of that funding by the ministry to Saugeen Hospice Inc. if the Ministry of Health thinks we are in a better position to build the hospice. So that's the answer to the first one. Now I've forgotten the second one. What was it again, Steve? It was an
Well,
easy one.
just, can the donations,
Oh,
for
right.
example, at a funeral home be directed to the south as opposed
Absolutely.
to a generic hospice?
Yeah, all 5 of the funeral homes were contacted, and I met with them personally shortly after our incorporation. That is currently where our $11,000 or $12,000 in our bank account is coming from, 100%. We are now, with our Facebook presence and soon our web presence, going to be moving towards further donations from the community. We don't have staff, and again, frankly, one of the objectives for us in the next 4 to 6 months, if we get enough funding, and I'm, off the top of my head, if we were to end up with $40,000 or $50,000 in the bank, we could at least hire a part-time fundraiser, because as you all know, there's nothing like a telephone and an email account to get out to people. I do regular updates to our 350 by email. I'm due to do another one in a week or so, but we will be able to multiply our fundraising efforts significantly if we were able to hire a part-time person locally, maybe 10 or 15 hours a week at 20 or 25 bucks an hour. But we need to have the money in the bank to actually do that, because right now it's all volunteers. For example, 4 of our board members are the ones that take the phone numbers off of each check we get from the funeral home. They take the phone numbers of the 170 checks we've gotten so far, and they're calling each one of them. Edith Oberly, Sandra Schreinert in Hanover, Edith here, and one more, and Elaine Burrow actually in Hanover. Our treasurer is also doing some of the calling, and then we also send out thank you cards, and I've got my wife Beth licking the stamps on the thank you cards here at home. So, but to answer that question, we've gone out to all the funeral homes. That's where our money is coming from, and we are extremely thankful to the Reeds, the Mightons, the Camerons, who are going out of their way to do this for us. And they are actually delivered into my mailbox here on 14 3rd Street from Camerons about every 2 weeks. So,
Thank you for that, Carl.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'll just give council an update. I did brief Carl last week. So the day after our last council meeting, I did meet Sonia, and I met with the Chapman House Leadership Group with former Chair Paul Rowcliffe and their director Janet Fairbridge and their current chair Bill Pearson. And we did tell them what our plans are and how things are moving along in East Ridge. And we told them that we didn't want to rush them, but we needed some clarification on that land. And so it was quite a conciliatory meeting. They did tell us that understood our needs from the municipality end. And they told us they would have a decision in the next few months if they were going to commit to the project, or if they were going to have a hybrid model where they would manage the future hospice and let the Saugeen Hospice do the fundraising and do that part of the work, or whether they would turn the whole project over to the Saugeen Hospice. So it's quite a conciliatory meeting. They touched on the 700,000 and acknowledged that that money was held in trust for the Southern Belt. So it was it's quite a good meeting, and hopefully this month we'll get an answer from them, and you'll get an answer too, Carl, from that group. So it went well, and I think given the growth we're experiencing with East Ridge, everybody understands that that site will be ready to go sooner than people thought. So thank you to your group, Carl, for picking this up and reviving the whole project. And I think you definitely got their attention and got the attention of the ministry. And I think things are on track, and I think we'll get a resolution to this logjam very soon. So
And that's what we're looking for. I mean, we are not, Saugeen Hospice is not an egotistical, not-for-profit corporation. If we can work in a collaborative relationship with Owen Sound to get this done, that's all we really care about. But we know that it's the local community here that provides the funds, and so it's important that 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 locals, I hate to say that, Owen Sound's not that far away, even though it is an hour. It's important to the local community that is donating, and we've heard from all of them that it be run here, that it be somehow managed here. Whether we have a collaborative strategic alliance with RHEB, we don't care. That's fine. We'd love to have it, because the sooner we can get this built, the sooner we have our residents down here moving on to that transition in their lives in a more comfortable, peaceful manner than sitting in a drab green hospital room with a light blue curtain. And that's the sad part of all this. So
yeah, no, I think things are on track. I heard some good stuff from Chapman House of the reconciliation on the file. And I think one thing everybody agrees on is we need that $1 million donor. Just like the Chapmans, we need a family to come forward, get their name up on the Walkerton Hospice. So if there's anybody out there that's got that $1 million that wants their name up on the building, you can contact me.
I should say,
I'll hold your name in trust until Carl and Bill get things worked out.
And I should say, and I can't mention their name, but we are in preliminary discussions with a significant size space related company that is currently spending a couple of $100 million in Grey County to expand its operations, and they may be very interested in being our significant donor, but that's probably 6 months down the road, and I'm working on that now. So
yeah, well, that'd be great, because once we get that, the donations will really flow.
Yeah,
be a clear green light. Okay, thank you, Carl. All right,
thanks,
moving on to our
really
second delegation. We have Mr. Craig and Mr. Eccles from CMR, and we're going to do a little question and answer session on the insurance issues regarding our recreational facilities.
Okay, can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Okay,
I can hear you, Ryan.
good start. Hello, everybody. Thank you for your time tonight. My name is Ryan Craig. I'm joined by my colleague, Dave Eccles. We both work at Craig McDonald Redden Insurance Brokers. We're responsible or help oversee the municipality of Brockton's insurance policy. I'll probably refer to it for the next few minutes as the master policy, as opposed to what we're talking about tonight, which is a potential user group insurance policy. By way of a little background, I'm also a lawyer currently, and I practiced exclusively personal injury law for 10 years in Toronto, focusing on motor vehicle accidents, slip and falls, and occupiers liability, types of claims that I think could, I mean, hopefully not, but that could potentially arise and would be the subject of the insurance I'm going to talk to you about. Finally, I'm a resident of Walkerton as well, living here in town. So before I get started, I wanted to thank Trish Sarator, Mark Coleman, and the municipal staff for what I think is an excellent report explaining the various benefits and how it works. I was able to review it today. So I won't try to go over it. I'm going to assume everyone's had a chance to hopefully read it, if not glance at it. And if it's okay with council, I have a few remarks. I will try to keep it under 10 minutes to respect everyone's time, and certainly open it up for questions and answers, which I think might be as productive as me speaking. But if you're okay, I do have a few prepared remarks. This user group program, which we're discussing or asking council to contemplate and making decision on, is something that will ensure all users have coverage. Again, I think the key question is, who are all users? And I'm going to focus on three groups: injured parties potentially, at-fault parties being the user groups and of course the municipality. I'll start with the injured party. If council chooses to adopt this program, essentially what it does is it makes sure insurance is available so that if a party is injured, bodily injury or property damage, that there is a policy, presumably they're up to 2 million or 5 million, again, depending on the limit that is selected, but that there is compensation available for an injured party. Again, my 10 years in Toronto, this was an area that I practice exclusively in, so I can speak to large damage awards are quite common. Someone falling, a brain injury, being paralyzed. It's not hard to get claims that are several million, but really it's not about how big they are. Even if a claim several thousand, 10,000, 100,000, it's all a lot of money for that presumably user groups and people nobody has sitting in their bank account. So what this does is it allows people who are injured and someone is liable, the user group, for that to have compensation available. So that's the first group I would say would have some focus. It also protects the at-fault user. So the flip side of it is all these user groups that are using, municipal property, they're all coming in, they're renting your space. And of course, if there's an allegation of negligence against the group hosting it, which if anyone's injured, a competent lawyer is going to bring a lawsuit against the user group and the municipality as the owner. That's pretty much a guarantee, but it makes sure that there is protection for the user groups. So without this policy, if they are liable, it doesn't matter if it's millions or thousands of dollars for any amount, that they would be personally exposed without having this insurance in place. So what it does is it makes sure that all the user groups that are using municipal property have coverage in place. And even if there's not liability, allegations of negligence that are brought forward will trigger a defense and legal fees. And I'm sure this won't surprise anyone here, but defending actions nowadays can cost tens of thousands to up to hundreds of thousands if a matter goes to trial, just in legal fees. And that's without a party actually being liable or responsible. So again, this policy provides protection in the sense of providing a legal defense if a user group is sued. And if it turns out they're liable, providing compensation up to the amount of insurance, which again, I believe you're contemplating $2 or $5 million as a limit, in addition to whether or not you go ahead. The third group is, well, refer to you, the municipality, which essentially is, as we all know, the taxpayers. What this policy does is it adds the municipality as an additional insured on the policy. So what it means is that if a claim arises, again, a user group will be sued, the municipality will be sued for certain as the owner of the property. And without this policy, the master policy that is in effect would be what would be responding. It's certainly not ideal, as the town has a $10,000 liability deductible on any claim that is there. And with one or two claims on the record, rates can increase. I can't give you an exact amount, but to say what we've seen just this year with other municipalities going out to tender, 10 or 20% increases in terms of rate is not uncommon at all, if not more. And in this case, that would be $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 or more of rate increases, potentially just from a few claims, in addition to the $10,000 deductible. So the municipality, by having this protection of being an additional insured, essentially when I say municipality, I might as well say the taxpayers, it essentially tries to keep claims, and hopefully we don't have any, but it keeps claims off of the master municipal policy onto this policy as protection for the municipality and the user group. A few more quick points, and then I'll certainly open it up to any questions that there may be. Is this is extremely cost effective. If you saw the document that was put together, and again, I thank Trish, Mark, and the staff at Walkerton for their work on this, you'll see you're looking at $3 to $15 an hour for a lot of the events. Of course, it depends on the number of users and the events, but it is very affordable. And when I say that, for these user groups to come on their own to try to obtain insurance, if available, and I stress if, it's a bit of a crazy market out there, but I'll stay on topic with this. If insurance is available for these groups, oftentimes there's minimum premiums, which would be at least a couple $100. Whereas somebody potentially having a card game or something, a birthday shower, something that we'll call low risk with a few people, could cost them $5, $10, $15 through the municipality, as opposed to having to come to us or somebody else, another insurance provider, and likely spend a minimum of $200. In addition to cost, which obviously everyone always focuses on, and rightfully, the administrative nightmare of trying to obtain your own insurance for these user groups, particularly the smaller user groups, it's really difficult. It's phone calls, it's questionnaires, it's making payments, signing applications. And it's not on a lot of people's mind, especially if there's not alcohol or it's lower risk. People don't think about it in their daily life a lot, and I don't blame them. People have better things to do and think about. But by having this in place, this really doesn't just give people a more cost-effective way to have protection. It really is a lot easier administratively to administer. It's really a matter of letting the person know at the municipality who's overseeing it, here's the date, here's what we're doing, here's the number of people, and you can see it. It's like here's the chart, here's what's owed, which can be built into the fees. So it really, I would suggest, should be viewed as a value add to the citizens and residents of the municipality that would be provided by the municipality. Another benefit of this is there's a choice to use this or not. So users do not have to select this insurance. If someone wants to go out and buy their own insurance, or if there's a group using it that has their own insurance, they don't need it. I mean, if they can provide a certificate that says they have insurance, and lots of groups do, then they don't need to do it. So there's no risk of somebody having to pay twice or anything like that. People do have the choice to select this or not. And in that regard, how it kind of works is there's a deposit put down based on previous year's usage, I believe, and Dave can confirm that when my remarks are done. But essentially, the deposit's put down. And then as the year goes on, if there's less usage of the facility than the deposit was there, there's a refund provided to the town at the end of the year. And if there's more usage throughout the year, essentially a debit or credit or a reconciliation is done at year end to get the premium. But it's not your typical insurance in the sense of you pay a premium, there's no refund regardless of whether there's a claim or not. In this case, there is a refund if the usage is not as much as essentially they estimated at the beginning of the year. And a final point I would make before closing my remarks is the town council can choose, or the town can choose how they want to bill this. So yes, the rates are there and being charged by the insurance company that will have to be submitted at the year end. But if council chooses to want to subsidize it or to add fees in because of municipal staff having to oversee it or take some of that, the town does have the right to essentially subsidize, charge out existing rates, or add in fees if there's extra cost to the town as they see fit. So there is flexibility. And of course, that would be a decision for you and the town to make, not ours, but just to point out that that can be done. So to summarize, this insurance offers injured parties protection and compensation in the event they're hurt and there is an at-fault party. It provides coverage to the user groups at a much more affordable cost in most cases than if they had to go get it on their own, and administratively far easier to set up than getting it on their own. And it provides the municipality and the taxpayers a level of protection in that the $10,000 liability deductible on the master policy and the potential rate increases, which would be significant from claims, are essentially protected by setting this policy up. So obviously it's a decision for council to make. I do think the information that was provided was great. I was going to go over the benefits to the municipality and users that is in the report, but it's there for you to see. I think I covered most, but the only two parts that were there that I would also say is I also believe it serves as a tool for the municipality to attract more users by having insurance readily available. Again, it's very cost efficient and very easy for users to use. And it offsets the need to provide a certificate of insurance and all those other steps that are required if users are forced to deal with it on their own. So it is something that I think is beneficial for the taxpayers and for the residents of the municipality, and something that I hope council agrees would be in everyone's interest to provide. And I think with that, those are kind of my prepared remarks, and I would be happy to answer any questions or try to address any concerns that may exist. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Craig. All right, questions from council. Councillor Lang.
Through you, Mayor Peabody, thanks, Ryan, for the presentation tonight. This was brought forward in the spring, as I'm sure you're aware, and it was there was a lot of discussion about it being an additional fee in recreation, which we looked at it as a negative then, but understanding it and having this presentation and looking at the report again, and then talking to people and users who have to go through the challenge of getting the insurance when it's not provided in a such service like this. So it was again discussed in our Parks and Rec meeting, and then we had a meeting with our users, and one of our users actually went and did their own research to get their own insurance and found just that. It was a complete challenge. The cost was astronomical compared to what this option would be. And I think this is a big value. I asked for this to come back the last meeting, but I'm glad we had more information this meeting. And that you mentioned a lot of key points. One was having another service provided, and I think that's important not just for the users, but for the municipality and taxpayers as well. So thanks for the presentation, Ryan. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Councillor Elphick.
And through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you, Ryan, for your presentation. A lot of additional information that wasn't before us earlier, and I've had an additional report from staff as well, which has been helpful. I think what I most am challenged by, though, in this whole report is what we are going to classify as municipalities, all users. When the report came forward in the spring, this was going to be something applied to all of our facilities throughout Brockton. Right now, we do have a requirement for insurance for those high-risk events like you spoke about for, second dose or high-risk hockey, those types of things we currently do. This seems to be something now, an additional piece for the low and medium risk type events. So I think about, recreation in our community and individuals, a lot of community groups that use our facilities. And, I thought for an example, we have the Cargill Lawn Bowling Club, very small, dedicated group of individuals. But once a year, they run a charity dinner typically, and they can commonly see, 500 to 1,000 people out to that event. So looking at these rates, though, that would suggest that a non-sporting event, one day, 500 to 1,000 people would require insurance coverage of $220 based on this chart. And I'm not quite sure that small organization really would be, in a financial position to now have this fee imposed upon them as part of their work to keep their club going. So I'm fully in support of, making this available to the groups in Brockton that require insurance, like Councillor Lang mentioned, where it is value added to them because it's a requirement of them. But what I'm not in favor of is imposing this requirement throughout all of our community facilities, where we are going to now expect individuals from low and medium risk user groups to have this insurance be a requirement for them to do, because I think there are just too many that don't have that financial availability to do that. So if you can help me just to make sure that I'm understanding that correctly, that fee would apply to them is my first question. And then also my second question just goes back to something you said earlier about protection for the municipality as well. This is going to be adding the municipalities an added insured, I think were your words, and keep it off of the master policy. And more so, I think I'm thinking of this in the concept of, joint and several liability, where, even if the municipality is found to be 1% liable, we could be picking up 100% of the total judgment, possibly, theoretically, right? So I just don't understand then how this is really going to provide that added value that you're speaking of, when we could be on the hook, regardless of whether this is available or not, and how that's going to be mitigated. So any comments on those two questions would be appreciated. And thank you again for your work in this.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Elphick. Dave, I might let you answer about the $500 to $1,220. The answer, I maybe will answer, and then Dave, if you can jump in to confirm that I'm correct on that. I believe your comments were right about the $220 in the example you gave, Councillor Elphick. Yes, so you have a fair point in terms of there's a cost. What I would reference, though, or what I would suggest to council in terms of, I think there was kind of two parts to this question, so hopefully I'll answer it and let me know, is that to not make it mandatory and not have that. So I forget the example you gave, I think Cargill Lawn Bowling, that if there is an injury and, you know, various things can happen. Someone trips, someone throws a ball, anything can happen. But think of a trip and falls are very common. Someone gets injured, they bring a lawsuit against that group. If they don't have insurance, the group has no protection, or the individuals named who are running the group have no protection. And so I don't want to diminish $220. You know, money is money. And I agree, a lot of these smaller user groups have, you know, have limited funds, but the cost to them is essentially bankruptcy, either as a user group, if it's incorporated, or the individuals, if named, to not have protection if a lawsuit comes. So I think the concern is, and in fairness to the people, you know, insurance, especially in these scenarios, is not often front of mind. And I don't blame people who are thinking about insurance all day. You know, honestly, I laugh and say, need a hobby. It's why I have an occupation. It's not the most exciting thing for, you know, users to use or to think about, the average resident. But I think the cost is relatively affordable relative to the protection that's offered. But your point is taken. You know, that is 500 to 1,000 people. So I mean, it's not my job, and I don't disagree with the comment, other than to say that's a large number of people. I would like to think you know, it would work out to, if it was 500 people, you're talking about 50 cents a person. Not to, again, suggest your comment's not valid, but I just think the downside of not having that protection is massive. And again, the one part I wanted to focus on, it is about protection for the municipality, and I'll answer that. I haven't answered that yet. Joint and several liability is the 1% rule, which I can get into, but that's not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about here is if something happens with the user group, and really the user group, the lawn bowling, they're throwing balls around and someone trips and falls and they sue the user group, or someone walks by and it's there. The municipality is going to get sued in any event where there's an injury, because they own all of these facilities. The owner always gets sued. And so what happens is, if all the allegations are truly against the user group, regardless of who it is, then it doesn't go to the master policy. What it says is, adding the municipality as an additional insured means that if it's essentially the user group that's the target, even though the municipality is sued, they get defended under this policy. So it is this insurance policy that would be paying out up to $2 million or $5 million, whatever limit is selected, not the master policy. The 1% rule applies either way, but that's totally different from how I heard your comments. It does not go to the master policy. The only way it would go to the master policy is if there was independent allegations of negligence against the municipality. So a user group's renting the KFC hall, and the floor, you know, there's a pothole in the floor. Well, that's not really a user group issue. So the user group might get sued because they hosted the event, but that would be probably independent and could come back to the master policy. But in the event the action is brought against the user group, the hockey team, someone runs a guy in the event of old timers, or I use the term old timers, I play it, so I hope I didn't offend anybody, but you know, it's really what it means is it keeps the municipal policy out of play unless there's independent allegations of negligence, and it makes sure that the municipality is defended, because the municipality is going to be sued in any of these events. And what that really does when you talk about costs, is that saves a $10,000 deductible and potentially saves $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 in rate increases that is the taxpayers and people are paying. I know that's drawing from a larger pool that's paying that, but honestly, you're talking, you know, it's one way or another. And I see as the most cost-effective manner to protect all residents to do this and to protect all the parties that are there. But, and I'll let Dave then confirm your first question. I do understand your point. It certainly is a cost. It's why I did put in there, you know, it's up to the council and municipality if they think they want to subsidize it or not. That's not something for me, I think, to comment on or to have an opinion on. I believe that's, you know, more of a municipal decision, but that is an option. I certainly think, and I would say this not as a lawyer or broker, but as a resident who pays property taxes, as a business owner in town and as a homeowner, I certainly hope it would be adopted, and truly believe that the value to the user groups far outweighs any negativity. I don't know that there is any, other than the point that there is a cost to it. That's a fair point. So Dave, can you just confirm how you took the first part, if that was correct? And if I missed anything, Councillor Elphick, I'm happy to clarify. Hope I didn't jump around too much.
Yeah, no, I think Councillor Elphick, you're right on with the amount there. I think the biggest probably misconception from the public and the user groups is that if they're using your facility, they automatically assume if they get sued that they will be protected by the municipality, and that's basically a myth. They won't personally be protected. Their organization won't be protected, and they'll be coming back to the municipality looking for protection. But your master policy only protects the municipality and not those individual groups. And I think that's the biggest misconception.
Okay, and thank you, Mr. Eccles. Ms. Sartor, you had a question? Sorry. Yeah, we'll just.
Sorry, I'm still muted. Through you, Mayor Peabody, just for clarification, the Cargill Lawn Bowling Committee does have their own insurance coverage with $2 million.
So in that case, they would not need insurance at all, which is another benefit of this, is anyone that has their coverage in place does not need to uptake this at all.
Okay, thank you. Further questions from council? Is there anybody else? Councillor Lifestyle.
Sorry, not a question, Your Worship, as much as two comments. Just going back to the 1% rule. Basically, what happens in that case is if we get sued as a municipality, the user group gets sued, where the 1% rule would kick in, where the municipality would pick up the 100% tab, is if the user group and the person that did the user group doesn't have enough insurance. So again, if the award is 80% them, 20% us, they pick up the 80% as long as they have coverage and or assets. When they don't have the coverage or the assets, that's when the municipality gets nailed for the deficiency, I suppose, is the best way of putting it. And I think actually Ryan did a wonderful presentation. Read with everything he said. The concern certainly would be anybody, and I've run into this in the past, when people, they volunteer to do stuff and they don't realize the legal obligations they're incurring. And in some cases, they are literally putting their farms or their houses at risk. And it's not from, and it's more just from lack of knowledge as much as anything. So this is really a program to protect everybody. And as Ryan pointed out, it protects both the person that's injured, because if there's no coverage, a person can be quadriplegic, and if there's no coverage, what do they do? Certainly protects the people that are holding the thing. I was going to say on two other things. I was hoping the Elmwood Community Center Board would have had their meeting last week, because we've talked about it in the past. And I know the board, my impression is we didn't get a chance to do a motion, but certainly from the discussion, I think the board was in favor of having this coverage available. I also know that Wes Gray was looking into it because of the joint board issue. And again, I haven't had a chance to talk to Wes Gray, but the council that was there was quite in favor of it. And the other part I wanted to mention was anything can be low risk, but having said that, we had an incident, not at my office, thank God, but another group, where the person sat in the chair broke. And it's amazing the legal costs that arose out of that one. Fortunately, the group did have insurance, but again, it was surprising how much what it costs just to have the matter basically dealt with.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Lifestyle. Any further questions? Okay, hearing none, we will, Councillor Hutchin, get your hand up.
Oh, I just wanted to say that I think this is going to be a great convenience for people, stress-free for a few dollars, really. I think it's important. Thank you.
Okay. All right, Mr. Craig, Mr. Eccles, thank you very much for spending an hour of your time with us tonight to inform us on insurance. And we have a report forthcoming in our report section. So we'll,
Thank you.
do what's the matter then. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving along to council minutes. Moved by Councillor Lang, seconded by Councillor Lifeso, that we adopt the minutes of the October 26th meeting as presented. All those in favor? That's carried. So business arising from the minutes is a notice of motion presented for by Councillor Lang on the topic we just mentioned. So it's a motion to reconsider the insurance solution program, moved by Councillor Lang, seconded by Councillor Lifeso. Whereas the Council of Municipality of Brockton considered a report from the Director of Community Services on defeated resolution 21-15-11 on May 11th, proposing that the Corporation of Municipality of Brockton implement a facility user solution program to allow for affordable insurance coverage for facility and property users, renters at municipal community center facilities and parks. And whereas Corporation of the Municipality of Brockton continues to field inquiries from interested parties wishing to obtain affordable insurance to rent or use Brockton facilities, be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of Brockton approves considering resolution 21-15-11 to revisit the proposal of implementing a facility user solution program. Okay, so there's a motion to reconsider. Councillor Lang brought forward last meeting, and I informed him that he had to wait 2 weeks. So here it is. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Okay, opposed? Okay, so that motion is carried. To reconsider, we need 4 out of 7. Okay, so now
Through you, Mayor Peabody, I think it's
on the motions.
would be 2/3 required for the next for the actual reconsideration motion.
Okay.
So I believe that would be.
Yep. 2/3. Yeah.
And
The
did
next
we
motion-
have a couple members recuse themselves from the vote on the next issue? So I just wanted clarification on what 2/3 would be if one or more are not voting on the next issue.
I don't know if anybody said 7.2, did they?
Okay, thank you.
That was 7.2, but then 6.1 is the notice to reconsider. Okay, so all right. Oh, I see. 7.2, yeah, is the report, but 6.1 we're actually voting on that, and you need 2/3. 6.1, 2/3 to approve the insurance. So I'll read the motion and then we'll see if there's any discussion. 6.1, notice of motion for reconsideration, facility user insurance program, by Councillor Lang, second by Councillor Lifeso, that the Council of the Municipality of Brockton hereby receives report Rec 2021-11, proposed facility user solution insurance prepared by Mark Coleman, Director of Community Services, and in doing so authorizes staff to proceed with implementation for inclusion in rental agreements, communication with service clubs and user groups, and bringing forward fees and charges bylaw. Okay, discussion on that. We've had discussion prior with the CMR, but we'll have more discussion. Councillor Adams, you had your hand up first.
Yeah, I'll be really quick. My position really hasn't changed a lot. Mandating and imposing on residents for bridge games and chess clubs and music recitals and so on, I just don't see it. I think it's unnecessary expense, and it's a complication for the user groups. I'm not sure that I might consider another location if I had to do it for certain items like that. A lot of them were pretty innocuous that I saw on the list, but appreciate the presentation. And I would guess that not every one on council agrees with my position, but I don't support it at this point.
Okay, Councillor Elphick.
Actually, I just have a point of clarification, if I may. Are we voting on the motion for reconsideration, or are we actually voting on the main motion here? Because I thought we did a vote for reconsideration, which was only only 57%, so it wouldn't be 2/3 of sitting councillors. If you abstain, it would be a negative vote. Is that not right?
Through you, Councillor Elphick, just to clarify that the motion to reconsider is 8.11 of the procedural bylaw. So it carries as long as there's just a majority, a simple majority. And then the main motion that is itself being reconsidered, that's 8.12, that would be the 2/3. So this motion would require 2/3. The previous motion required only a straight majority.
But isn't it that then there's no debate on the reconsideration motion? Like we would just be calling, would not just proceed right to calling the reconsideration?
We can let me pull up my procedural bylaw. Yes, no discussion on the main question until the motion for reconsideration is adopted. So I think the motion for reconsideration has been adopted, which means I think it's okay to have discussion now. That would be paragraph 8.17.
Okay. All right. Do you have any further discussion then, Councillor Elphick, before I move around the table here?
Well, my comments would be is that I have not changed my position on this because it looks to impose a broader imposition on our user groups at our recreational facilities. It's an additional rec tax, and I don't agree with that. I think that if we want to extend the program to those user groups that are currently having to provide this insurance, that I support that initiative. But what I don't support, which this intends to do as it's currently drafted, is to impose a financial burden, financial hardship, quite frankly, I think, on smaller user groups that conduct only low or medium risk activities. Another example is the art show. When I look at this is going to place a financial obligation on the art show, which they currently do not have to do. I think it was $550 some. That group, frankly, doesn't have that capacity. So I
don't think that's. I think the art show is actually a subcommittee of the Heritage Committee, so they would already be insured. They wouldn't be required to get any additional insurance, just as an example.
All right. Okay. Any further discussion? Anybody else? Well, I'd just like to I'll give you one example where many years ago, we had a very bad slip and fall at the Cargill Community Center. And person was incapacitated in hospital for 6 months and then they died. And when the insurance case came up, the volunteer person, local farmer who blew out the driveway, he was listed in the case. And that family out there in Cargill was very upset because they could have lost, as Dean has already pointed out, they could have lost their farm. Even though his job was not to blow out the sidewalk in front of the place, it was the blowing out the parking lot. So in that example, that's why I'm going to support this, because I know how upset that family was by that whole lawsuit. And then of course the victim, their family, very upset. And it was a very messy insurance situation. It was represented our largest payout ever. But then luckily the lawyer for the family backed off on going after the farmer that was plowing things out. I was very lucky. So that's why I'm going to support this. Okay, Councillor Lang.
Just wanted to comment again, and Councillor Elphick mentioned that it would be another tax on the rec. I just working all right, sorry. Like my example I said earlier, I don't see it, I see it more as a service, not as a tax. I originally thought that of the additional fee until understanding user groups that have to talk to insurance companies, and it's actually going to save the user money using our service, then the difficulty going and getting their own insurance. So I don't see it as a tax. I see it more as a service because they're going to be paying it out, but they're going to be paying less, and it's a convenience for us. That's the rec side. I see the other ones, but it seems that on a couple examples that already maybe some of these other users maybe have their own insurance, and that might be something that we can, if this is successful, discuss when we talk about our fees. Like Ryan said, that we could have a conversation about certain user groups and having a different fee for them versus ones in recreation. But I just wanted to comment on that.
Okay, Councillor Elphick.
If I could just add then to that, because it wasn't in the report, I think that we see at 7.2 about the user groups that this will now apply to. Is that information available for council to have in making this decision? Because I think, to Councillor Lang's point, and as I said earlier, that the groups that are already currently having to provide proof of insurance, I'm in favor of that. What I'm not in favor of, as I understand the report to do, which is to impose this throughout the municipality for any and all users of our facilities across the municipality, where I think that's just a too broad and aggressive reach on what we would require those individuals to do for this, especially low risk and medium user groups. I think that there's a degree of tolerance that we accept as the municipality in running our facilities, and then others that we do not, and those are the ones that are providing the proof currently, and which we would want to extend this service to them. I'm in support of that. It's the other part of it that I'm not.
Okay. All right. Well, we've had a good discussion. We've spent a lot of time on this, and the chart really clarifies things. Councillor Lang, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask when we vote if it could be recorded.
Okay, Ms. Hamilton.
Yes, certainly. If you can just give me one moment, though, so I can get myself prepared here. I'm trying to make use of some of the features in eScribe that I haven't necessarily used before to get ready for the launch of webcasting. So, to the question, if you can reply with yes or no, whereas Council of the Municipality of Brockton's considered a report from the Director of Community Services on and defeated Resolution 21-15-11 on May 11th, 2021, proposing that the Corporation of the Municipality of Brockton implement a facility user solution program to allow for affordable insurance coverage for facility. And I'm sorry, I wish someone had stopped me earlier. That's the wrong motion. That the Council of the Municipality of Brockton hereby receives report number REC 2021-11, proposed facility user solution insurance coverage prepared by Mark Coleman, Director of Community Services, and in so doing authorizes staff to proceed with implementation for inclusion in rental agreements, communication with service clubs and user groups, and bringing forward the fees and charges bylaw. To that question.
Sorry, just a point of clarification. Is there not a need to do the reconsideration motion first, where we require the 2/3 of council?
No, my belief was that we did that reconsideration motion, which passed with a simple majority in accordance with section 8.11 of the procedural bylaw. And that now this main parent motion, which has now become the main motion, gets a 2/3 vote in accordance with 8.12. That was my reading of the procedural bylaw that I do have here. So I could certainly share my screen if that'd be helpful for council, if I can put up that section of the procedural bylaw.
No, I think we're good, Ms. Hamilton. Please call the question.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Gierzak, do you vote yes or no to the question?
Yes.
Councillor Lifeso, yes or no?
Yes.
Councillor Lang?
Yes.
Councillor Hutchin?
Yes.
Councillor Adams?
This is refreshing that I'm not the first for the first time. No.
Councillor Elphick?
No.
Mayor Peabody?
Yes.
Okay. The motion is carried. Yes, thank you. There is a recorded vote template in eScribe that I don't use because I tended to do alphabetical recorded votes, but I'm preparing for the launch of the webcasting through eScribe, so that's why I'm starting to familiarize myself. So thank you for bearing with me, Council.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay, now we'll move into reports. Section 7. Now we've got 18 reports tonight, so I'll ask council to triage their comments because we've got an in-camera also, and it's already 8:20. Saugeen Hospice donation request. We have a motion by Deputy Mayor Gierzak and by Councillor Hutchin that we receive report FIN 29 Saugeen Hospice donation request prepared by Trish Territory, CFO, for information purposes and approved staff, including the donation request of $10,000 into the 2022 budget for further discussion. All those in favor? Carried. The report on facility user insurance coverage, moved by Councillor Lang, second by Councillor Lifeso, that we receive report FIN 30, facility user solution insurance coverage prepared by Trish Sartori, CFO, for information. All those in favor?
I'd just like to speak to that. I wanted to speak to that report in 7.2 if I could.
Yep.
So earlier in this meeting, and I just want to raise a point that I actually disagree with the procedure in which we followed, that I believe that council would have had to pass a motion for reconsideration, and then the main question is brought back for debate. Because on that main motion for debate, I would have liked to have motivated an amendment to that original question, that we would have been able to extend this program to those other user groups and get further information on those low and medium risk groups in advance. And I wasn't afforded that opportunity, and that's why I asked for clarification earlier in this meeting on those steps. So at this time, I would just ask that if we could have information from staff, if available, on what groups would currently not be required to provide that information for insurance.
Okay. Ms. Sartori, can we get that, put that together for the next meeting then?
I will do my best.
Yes, thank you. All right. Emergency management update, moved by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor or Deputy Mayor Gierzak, sorry, that we received report EM 2021-2, emergency management update prepared by David Smith, Community Emergency Management Coordinator, and doing so approves the bylaw coming forward amending the Brockton response plan. It further approves the bylaw coming forward entering into an agreement with the Salvation Army for the management of donations during a major emergency. Okay, any questions about that report? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor? It's carried. Plan the Bruce. Moved by Deputy Mayor Gierzak, seconded by Councillor Hutchin, that we receive report Building 31. Plan the Bruce. Bruce County Official Plan Consultation, Natural Legacy Report. Prepared by Dieter Wells, Building and Planning Manager, CBO, and in doing so recommends that staff prepare and submit comments in response to the plan, Bruce consultation documents based on staff's recommendation and council input from tonight's discussion. Okay, any comments about that? Plan the Bruce. Okay, hearing none. All those in favor? Carried. CBO report October, moved by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Elphick, that we accept report 30 CBO activity report for October, prepared by Dieter Welts, Building and Planning Manager, CBO for information purposes. Any questions there? Okay, you can see from year over year, we're up 80% on those total value. So I guess if we hit in 2 months, we can hit 52 million, 3 million each month. We'll have those doubled. It'll be an incredible.
If we're going to get there.
Incredible rate of growth. Okay, all those in favor? It's carried. Thank you very much, Mr. Wells. Thank you to you and Dom for all your hard work. Incredible amount of permits you have to process there and get all that out the door and all those inspections and help with our growth. So thank you very much to you and Dom for all your extremely hard work, extra work too.
Thank you, Mayor Peabody.
Okay, Build Your Brockton website, moved by Deputy Mayor Gierzak, seconded by Councillor Hutchin, that we receive report COK 36, Build Your Brockton Community Engagement Website Stats, prepared by Sarah Johnson, Junior Deputy Clerk. In doing so, approves proceeding with option 1, further authorizing pre-budget approval for staff to renew the contract with Bang the Table for management of Build Your Brockton Community Engagement Website. Okay. Any questions there about the website, Build Your Brockton? Okay, all those in favor? It's Carried. October, water and wastewater, moved by Councillor Adams, second by Councillor Elphick, that we receive report 17 October 2021 water and wastewater report prepared by Greg Furtney, Director of Operations, for information purposes. Okay. Although, any questions first for Mr. Furtney? All those in favor? It's carried. Hanover Newstead Snowmobile Club request that the Council of Valley Brockton receives report PW 2021-25 Hanover Newstead Snowmobile Club request prepared by Greg Furtney, Director of Operations, and doing so approves a bylaw coming forward, entering into a 5-year memorandum of understanding between the Ontario Federation of Snowmobile Clubs and the Municipality of Brockton, so that the Hanover Newstead Snowmobile Club can use a portion of municipal property to reroute their snowmobile trail for the upcoming winter season. Moved by Councillor Lang and seconded by Councillor Lifeson. Any questions there? Okay, all those in favor? All right, and then we have Highway 9, moved by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Elphick, that the Council of Municipality of Brockton receives report 26 MTO capital project work Highway 9 update prepared by Greg Furtney, Director of Operations, for information purposes. Okay, any questions about that? Councillor Hutchin.
Thank you. I just want to say it can happen soon enough. We need to get those lights up. Greg, do you have any idea how long this is going to take before we actually see lights there?
Yes, through you, Mayor Peabody, to Councillor Hutchin. They're looking at a 2023 construction period. It may include lights, it may include a roundabout. They haven't chosen in particular a method yet, but the process is ongoing. It actually started in this past summer. So they are on it. It is subject to financial approval at the ministry level, but from what I've read and from what I've been told through email, things look very positive.
I know the county years ago considered a roundabout with the MTO, but they didn't have enough land, right? Those four corners would be hard to pick up.
So at that one particular corner of Briss Road 3, they have been looking at the land option there, including how it would affect the cemetery that is there on the one corner,
yes.
The southeast corner, I guess it is. And so these things are all part of the bigger discussion the MTO will have. And if council has any comments or wish me to ask any further questions, I can certainly do that either on your behalf, or you're more than able to do that on your own as well. So,
should we not draft something to the ministry from this council?
Yes. County Council had sent something in asking for this stoplight for right away in April. And I phoned Lisa Thompson's office and they phoned down to MTO, and there was some positive movement on that. But then a lead engineer for MTO wrote back and said, no, we're just sticking to the original timeline of the 2023 and doing a proper study of whether we put a roundabout in. And
he obviously doesn't use the road.
I mean, so there's resistance. There was some initial movement, but then resistance from the lead engineer for MTO. It's a letter to County Council. So yes, we should write back to Lisa Thompson, definitely.
Send them a video from a long weekend.
Yep.
Yes, I was almost killed there.
Yeah, so we've got the report. And, yeah. But it's great that County Council got that, or the Director of Transportation, Mr. Peltier, got that letter. At least he got some movement. No answer is still something we can work with rather than just being strung along. So that's good that he, county jumped in right away. And so, yes, we should write a letter. So, Councillor Elphick.
I was just going to move an amendment to the motion to include that So we accept the report for information purposes and further direct staff to send the letter, just so it's documented for our minutes.
Okay, so we'll add that, and made by Councillor Elphick, seconded by Councillor Hutchin. All those in favor of amending it? Okay. All those in favor of the overall motion? Okay, very good, thank you. Okay, equipment tender results. Firstly, the tractor, moved by Councillor Lang, seconded by Councillor Lifeso, that we received report 27, Public Works Equipment Tender Results, Agricultural Tractor, prepared by Greg Fertney, Director of Operations. And in doing so, approves the purchase of a Case HI Maxim 150 agricultural tractor from Stoltz Equipment in the amount of $163,000, and that the additional $13,000 comes from the reserve fund. Okay, any questions about the tractor? Okay, all those in favor? It's carried. On to our plow trucks. Moved by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Elphick, that we receive report 29, Public Works Equipment Tender Results, plow truck prepared by Greg Fertney, and approve the immediate ordering of the 2022 Freightliner 114 SD from Team Truck at a cost of $160,000 plus HST payment and delivery in 2022, and approve the immediate ordering of the 2023 International A26 All-Truck International Truck for $155,650 plus HST with payment and delivery in 2023, and further approves exemption from the procurement policy for plow box, sander, and assembly of the truck due to the sole source supplier. Questions? Okay, all those in favor? Okay, the backhoe lease. Moved by Deputy Mayor Gers, seconded by Councillor Hutchin, that we receive report 28, Public Works Equipment Tender Results, backhoe lease prepared by Greg Fertney, Director of Operations, and doing so approves entering into a 48-month lease of a John Deere 310 SL backhoe for Brant Tractor. Any questions? Okay, all those in favor? Carried. Walker West Booster, moved by Councillor Lang, seconded by Councillor Lifeso, that we receive report 16, Walker West Booster Pumping Station, prepared by Greg Fertney, Director of Operations, for information purposes. Any questions there? Councillor Adams.
Not a question, just thank Greg for putting that together. That's why council asked. Pretty important project, and for me, that was really valuable information to know where we are at this moment on that really important project. So thank you, Greg, for that.
Okay, all those in favor? Okay, that's carried. Financial report, October 31st, moved by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Elphick, that we receive report FIN 2021-31 financial report as of October 31st, 2021, prepared by Trish Secretary, CFO, for information purposes. Are there any questions there? Okay, all those in favor? Carried. Walker Improvement Area Space Proposals. Moved by Deputy Mayor Gers, seconded by Councillor Hutchin, that we approve report CLK 2021-37 Walkerton Improvement Area Office Space Proposals prepared by Fiona Hamilton, Clerk, for information purposes, and in doing so approves the Walkerton BIA negotiating an exit strategy for the BIA office location to be paid using surplus funds from the wages budget. Okay. Any questions there? Okay. All those in favor? Okay. Sounds like a better solution than where we were before. So really need to thank Ms. Hamilton for plugging away at this file. It's a good resolution, well, as best as possible. It's a fantastic situation. Thank you. Okay. COVID immunization disclosure policy, moved by Deputy Mayor Gers, seconded by Councillor Hutchin, that Municipality of Brockton receives report CAO 2127 COVID immunization disclosure policy updated, prepared by Sonia Watson, CEO, and in doing so approves a bylaw coming forward to approve the updated COVID-19 immunization disclosure policy, and further rescinding the outdated policy's inclusion from bylaw 2021-80. Okay, any questions about that? Councillor Hutchin.
Thank you. Question, who's paying for these tests?
We're being provided the tests, so our staff do not have to pay for them for the childcares.
That's awfully nice of us. Good.
Of them, yeah. Okay, any other questions? All right, all those in favor? Okay, that's carried. Pandemic policies, moved by Councillor Adams, second by Councillor Elphick. And we received report CAO 2021-26 pandemic policies updated November 9th, 2021, prepared by Sonia Watson. CAO in doing so rescinds this policy from bylaw 2021-80 and approves the bylaw coming forward to approve the amended pandemic self-screening policy. Okay, any questions? All those in favor? Carried. East Ridge Business Park Phase 1 tender acceptance, moved by Councillor Lang, seconded by Councillor Lifeso, that we approve report CAO 2021-28 East Ridge Business Park Phase 1 tender acceptance prepared by Sonia Watson CAO for information purposes and approves awarding the tender for the construction of the next phase of East Ridge Business Park to Harold Sutherland Construction Limited in the amount of $3,689,825.44, including HST. Any questions? Okay. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, moving along to the public notification. Clarewood Drive will be closed from November 8th to the 12th in order to complete work on the Walker West Booster Station. Leaf collection, the municipality is collecting leaves on November 15th. Leaves must be placed in biodegradable craft waste bags and placed at the curbside no later than 7 a.m. Walkerton's Hometown Christmas. Durham Street in Walkerton will be closed from Jackson to Victoria on Friday, November 19th from 3 to 9 for the event. A detour is available along McNabb and Scott. And the Elmwood Community Chamber Survey. The Elmwood Chamber of Commerce is conducting an online community survey to gather feedback on events and services that best interest the community. The survey closes at the end of November. Okay, on to accounts, moved by Councillor Adams, second by Councillor Elphick, that we approve payment of the accounts in the amount of $406,687.93. Are there any questions there? All those in favor? Carried. On to agenda item 11, information items, moved by Mayor Gears, seconded by Councillor Hutchin, that we receive all items provided in section 11, information. Any questions? Okay, all those in favor? Carried. On to our bylaws. Moved by Councillor Lang, seconded by Councillor Lifeso, that we authorize the following bylaws be read, enacted, signed, sealed, numbered as followed. 141, zoning bylaw amendment, Camp, Z 2021-30. 142, Salvation Army Emergency Donation Management Memorandum of Understanding bylaw. 144, amend Emergency Management bylaw. 145, Hanover Newstead Snowmobile Club Memorandum of Understanding. 146, amend pandemic policies. 147, adopt amended COVID-19 immunization disclosure policy. 148, agricultural tractor tender acceptance. 149, all truck international truck plow truck tender acceptance. 150, team truck plow tender acceptance. 151, branch tractor backhoe lease agreement. 152, DAC checker produce agreement of purchase and sale. 153, East Ridge Business Park Phase 1 tender acceptance. All those in favor? Okay, it's carried. Second bylaw, moved by Deputy Mayor Gears, seconded by Councillor Hutchin, that we authorize the following bylaw be read, enacted, signed, sealed, numbered as followed. 143, amend emergency response plan bylaw. Okay. All those in favor? Okay, it's carried. Our committee minutes, moved by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Elphick, that we receive the minutes of the following committees and our boards as presented. Brockton Child Care, June 1st, Brockton Child Care, September 7th, Brockton Heritage, October 4th, Walkerton BIA, October 20th. All those in favor? Okay. Moves this right along to business brought forward by councillors. Councillor Elphick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to acknowledge a community group that's doing some online motivation for sidewalks along Rideout Street in the town of Walkerton. I know that council has received correspondence as well, but just for our minutes to acknowledge their correspondence and that we look forward to their delegation at a future council meeting.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Elphick. Deputy Mayor Gierzak.
Thank you, Mayor Peabody. And at last council meeting, Councillor Adams asked for an update with respect to the airport. So I thought I would provide a brief update this evening. In light of the report from Wes Gray's Integrity Commissioner regarding council member discussion in private or in public of matters of a legal nature, I have reviewed the commission's position pertaining to the current situation with Brockton's Integrity Commissioner. Based on that discussion, my response to Councillor Adams' request for an update is as follows. Public information available on the SMA website prior to regular monthly meetings shows that as of September 30th, the commission paid $15,669.24 for legal services. Discussion towards resolution has been moving forward since September the 10th. The commission has approved communication to the pilot confirming both parties are in agreement regarding a new access agreement and that the commission will continue to utilize Zoom technology to permit public access to SMA open sessions. That concludes my update. Thank you.
Dan, if I could add to what you said, there was some correspondence that with that trespass charge, the municipality of Brockton was the complainant. And I did phone the POA office of Grey County to inform them of that error. And through Ms. Hamilton, they agreed that was an error. So some correspondence going around about that was incorrect.
And thank you very much for responding to that as quickly as you did. Certainly, it really does make a difference when we can take care of those things very quickly and move forward. Thank you.
Okay, who had their hand up next? Was it Councillor Hutchin? Raise your hand up. Councillor.
Thank you, but Tim brought up the issue about sidewalks on Rideout Street. I don't know, maybe we could jump the gun and ask staff for a rough idea of what it would cost, because I'm sure it would not be cheap. It would involve sewers and a whole new road.
Well, I know they've been looking at that. So when the delegation comes, we'll have definitely.
Okay. Great, thank you.
For them. Okay, Councillor Adams.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Peabody. If I can just perhaps add a little bit more to Deputy Mayor Gierzak's update. I was much more specific than that rather general update. I was asking when we were going to have a solution to that long-standing issue about pylons. So that was really where I was wanting to go, and I get that question from a lot of residents. So I'd like to be able to give them a more specific answer. And I also actually asked for, and I thank you, Dan, for bringing up, I've got the general ledger here, which is public knowledge, and which I had afterwards after I'd asked. And there was a fairly substantive amount in both 2020 and 2021. So, and I guess that's where I had said very clearly from my perspective as a council member that I didn't want to see a dime spent on legal action and We've spent a fair bit. So I guess I now have the number. I know how much we've spent on legal costs. I guess I'd still like to know when we're going to have a solution to the long-standing issue of pylons in front of a residence hangar. So perhaps maybe next meeting we could be served with that. I don't think that is privileged information, I would hope. There's been issues with courts and so on. So I would like to see some resolution, some finality drawn to this issue. So that's my response to that.
Okay, thank you. Further questions or input? Councillor Lang.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Peabody. I just asked for clarity, Dan. Appreciate the update, because I know it's I know there's a lot happening. You talked about Councillor Hergart and the Integrity Commissioner, and that you were talking about the current situation in Brockton. Can you elaborate on the current situation with the Integrity Commissioner with that comment?
Yeah, I think it really speaks to, I want to be a little bit sensitive, but if you've read the Integrity Commissioner's report to Wes Gray, you understand very clearly Council's responsibility not to comment in public or in private on matters related to legal issues. And with that in mind, I did contact our Integrity Commissioner to clarify the position that the commission is currently in, and what would be appropriate for me to comment on and in what matter. So I think I'd like to, hopefully that's answered it a little bit.
You've certainly cleared.
If you haven't read Wes Gray's Integrity Commissioner report,
personally,
and that is something that
I have.
Thank you.
I have, and you've certainly clarified it for me by that answer. Thank you.
Okay, any further business brought forward? Okay, just one final point on the airport. It's not to deal with the legal issue, those legal issues, but what's become apparent with the offer of purchase is that the agreement's outdated between the airport and the shareholders. So I wonder, do we need to hire a lawyer to review that, or is the commission going to draft a new one, or where are we with that?
Yes, we have drafted a new one, and I would say we've revised the existing one. As maybe draft a new one is perhaps too strong a words. And we're certainly prepared to share that with municipalities fairly soon. I would hope that we wouldn't need much of a rewrite or much of a view from our legal staff. I think between the three clerks of the municipalities should be able to give us a pretty comprehensive reading as to what may need to be tweaked in addition to the edits that have already been made.
Okay. All right. Okay, any other business brought forward? Okay. Just a county update, just on the Plan the Bruce. The county had proposed that the mayors go as a delegation to Steve Clark to talk about their interpretation of the PPS and how it relates to our housing stock, and to try to get Minister Clark to maybe change the PPS. Bottom line is they think that Watson report is something that they're going to really stick to, and they can't deviate from, as it applies to our housing lands and our employment lands, which is unfortunate, but we have hired a planner to oppose that. So that's still our position, and I told them that. But, so that's where that issue came up. So there's really not much movement on it, but I thought I'd tell everybody that. Okay. All right. We'll now be able to move in camera with Deputy Gierzak, second by Councillor Hutchin, that we move into closed session at 8:48 to deal with personal matters about identifiable individual, including municipal people, staffing update, proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land, Eastridge Business Park, and litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, a subdivision update. So 3 items. Okay, all those in favor? Okay. So we'll now adjourn our open session to go into closed. Okay. Welcome back to our meeting. Now rise and report. First motion, Sonia, can I just clarify the staff direction about the resignation? I wrote it in myself. It's okay.
Mayor Peabody, that we rise and have a motion to accept with regret the resignation of Greg Turnbull.
Yeah, okay, just want to make sure. Moved by Councillor Adams, second by Councillor Elphick, that we approve the direction provided to staff in closed session and that we accept with regret the resignation of Greg Turnbull. All those in favor? Carried. Go to moved by Councillor Lang, second by Councillor Leitchso. That one is, we voted not in favor of that one. Or we didn't vote. Okay, confirmation of proceedings, moved by Deputy Gierzak, second by Councillor Hutchin. Councillor Westphal, Brockton authorized the following bylaw be read and acted signed till numbered as followed. Bylaw 2021-155, November 9th, 2021, confirmatory bylaw. All those in favor? Okay, that's carried. Motion to adjourn at 9:56, moved by Councillor Adams, second by Councillor Elphick, that we meet again November 23rd. All those in favor? Okay, it's carried.